took me by surprise, I wasn't prepared and I never intended to speak here. But what Amna Janjua said, and one thing which was very significant, that she wants to know the truth. To speak the truth is very, very difficult. It's very difficult to speak the truth. And they say that anyone who speaks the truth is the most hated person, provided it's a society where there are values. I've had a long experience. I've known Amna Masood Janjua from the days of the lawyers' movement. Let me say that was not a movement for restoration of the judges. It has a far greater, much bigger role. Its role was to restore democracy, to restore the constitution, and above all, to have a rule of law in the country. And why was that? It attracted people like Amna Masood Janjua, it attracted her children and so many others who were victims of state excesses. But it's very interesting, you see. I was sitting there and it reminded me of an incident. I was a civil servant, I'd resigned. So we were a batch of about 100 people. So after every 10 years, there's a formal reunion at the academy, official. So I had resigned, so they all asked me to come, and I told them, you see, I have nothing to do with it. Yet they forced me and I went there. So initially, the then Director General was there. I mean, since she has said to speak the truth, let us speak the truth. Now we were all, I mean, I had resigned, the rest were all civil servants, some from police service, some from the district management group, and many others. The Director General was a person who had served there in Punjab as the Chief Secretary. So when I went there, our time, the professor wanted to know why I had resigned. So I spoke the truth. Because of speaking that truth, everyone else started speaking the truth. So this one colleague of ours, who is now retired as a police officer and a very honorable police officer, he said whatever he said is absolutely right. The first time when I was posted as a district police officer in Punjab, I was interviewed and I was told that we have a policy, an unannounced policy of extrajudicial killings. And this he said in front of everyone. And I don't want to say who he had named, who had interviewed him. So he said, I mean, it didn't harm me, except that I was sent to the federal government and I remained very happy. So the gentleman who's the Director General, he said, no, this is absolutely rubbish. This can never, could never have happened. When was that? He said, when you were the Chief Secretary. And that was the truth. I've had an experience of being a judge since 2014. And the most difficult, and fortunately there are many faces here today who probably shared that experience with me. The most difficult cases were that of enforced disappearances. The first case, it was an old case. When it came to me, I did my own research because during Loy's movement we used to say, and Amna is a mother, and now she is a mother to all those children who are victims of state excesses. So during Loy's movement we used to say, Riyasat hogi maa ke jaise. So a riyasat, you see, is supposed to take care of its children. But if the state is perceived to be involved or gets involved, there's nothing that the courts can do. There's nothing that, because the state, it's the duty of the state to investigate, to make people accountable. But fortunately, the first judgment I gave, that victim of enforced disappearance, his family, that daughter was also just like Amna's daughter. And the judgment I gave. But that judgment, if you read that judgment, the directions that were given, those directions then were extremely effective during the 4 years period that I served as the Chief Justice. And it was not that, you see. I'd made it very clear to the executive that I will not tolerate a single incident of enforced disappearance from within my jurisdiction. And I used to give them the judgment, my judgment in Myra Sajid's case. And incidentally, the law reports have reported that in a law report that is meant for civil dispute cases. But again, when I took over as the Chief Justice in 2018, November, the first notification that I issued, because I believed it was a constitutional court, and as a constitutional court, it had to remain open for 24 hours. And the first case that came to me, I was at home, and the Supreme Court didn't take that case up, though the journalists went there. I received it in the evening. I passed an order that these are my directions in that judgment. All these officials will be held accountable if, and a separate message was sent to the authorities, that there will be no tolerance at all. And incidentally, the gentleman is here, Matiullah Jan. And then I was informed, the IG very excitedly sent a message to the registrar that he has been found. But it didn't end there. The next was an official of SECP. Unfortunately, a retired general, there was something to do with him. And he disappeared, and his petition also came in the evening. And the same order I passed, that I'm giving you, these are my Sayyida's, the judgment's directions, Myra Sajid's directions. If this gentleman is not produced before the court within 2 days, you all will appear. And lo and behold, after a day, he came back home and he said that I had gone to the northern areas for tourism. The second was a young man, Hamza. The same happened. The same happened. My notice went and he came back before the hearing. And the fourth one was Munir Akram. Except these four, there were other very old cases in which the investigations had taken place. The authorities would come and they would all say that we don't know where they are. And the judge and the court cannot do anything when you don't have independent investigators. But yet, Shireen Mazari is here. She was then the Minister for Human Rights. There was one old case of Mudassar Naru, a journalist. And I wasn't aware, one day I was in the court hearing cases, and all of a sudden I heard the sound of a child crying in the court. So I asked my staff, who's the child? The child came forward with the grandmother. That was Mudassar Naru's child. His mother had passed away, and the state had failed to at least let them know whether he was alive, he was dead, where he was. Yes, I wanted to sensitize the issue because there was nothing else that I could do. And I would go by the Constitution. Under the Constitution, the executive head is the Prime Minister. I passed an order that this child and his grandmother be taken to the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan. It's very, very difficult for the courts when the state is not cooperating with you. But the Constitution says that it is the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and in the provinces, the Chief Minister and the ministers who are responsible. You can't blame someone else. And then I had to write an order in a separate case, that is May 22 order. And with a very heavy heart, I had to ask the Prime Minister to appear in the court. And the Prime Minister did appear. Naru's son was also there. He also assured in the court that child, that his whereabouts would be known. When I was in a haste elevated to the Supreme Court. But before that, let me say to you, the Islamabad High Court, the first priority was to have competent and fearless judges. And for a judge or for a court, the only test is the confidence of the people in that court. And in those 4 years, students from Balochistan started approaching Islamabad High Court. And I knew I didn't have had the jurisdiction. But I assumed the jurisdiction. The Supreme Court was there. There were other courts there. The only judgment on enforced disappearance, the nature of the offense, the gravity of the offense, and to what extent it violates human rights is the only judgment which is Myra Sajid's judgment, and in all the jurisdictions. There is no other, because I searched it a lot. When the Balochistan students came, I didn't know what to do, because it was out of my jurisdiction. The investigations had to take place in Balochistan. But law did provide me that jurisdiction. And I thought, it's such a complex issue. Why not constitute a commission which would include every person in this society who is vocal about enforced disappearance? So the 7 people that I nominated for that commission, one of them was Afrasiab Khattak. And others as well, every one of them outstanding. From every political party, I'd taken their most vocal member. From People's Party, Raza Rabbani. From PMLN, I don't remember who was, Mushahid Hussain. From JUIF, our very senior lawyer, Kamran Murtaza, Ali Ahmed Kurd, Asad Umar. And then I knew they were very, very vocal people. They had their heart in this issue. They will come up with something. And then I thought it would be better to give them protection. So the then Chairman Senate was from Balochistan. So I felt he himself is from Balochistan. And yes, I had also involved the LUMS Academic Senate, you see. I also was told, you see, that there were efforts that they do not complete this work. But they did complete that work. The report I don't know, but in a haste I was elevated to the Supreme Court. But I'm sure with all of them, it must be a landmark report, which in my opinion should be made public. People must know. Balochistan is most important right now for every Pakistani. And let me say this, the Constitution makes us responsible. Every judge, though a case may not be before a judge, is still responsible. Why? Even after the 26th Amendment, Article 184 has not been amended. Every judge of the Supreme Court is responsible personally and severally for every violation of fundamental rights that takes place in Pakistan. That gives the Supreme Court that authority, the power. I felt it my responsibility as a judge. And I felt responsible. So in 2023, I wrote a letter as a sitting judge to the then Chief Justice that the most important matter in this country is the violation of fundamental rights arising on account of enforced disappearances. Well, nothing happened. I didn't have the authority. But we are responsible. We are responsible to Amna Jua, we are responsible to her children, we are responsible to every victim who is perceived to be a victim of enforced disappearance. But let me say a word about my experience, since it's a matter which has been extremely close to my heart. And I believe I feel responsible, and I apologize to them as a judge. No, I do. I am responsible. We all are responsible. A society where women from Balochistan are parading on the streets, our heads should hang in shame. But it's the women, led by Amna Masood Janjua, by Marang Baloch. They are only expressing themselves. You need independent judges. You need an independent judiciary. The Islamabad High Court, people trusted that High Court. From all over the country, people were coming to that court. It had independent and fearless judges. But let me say a word. With great respect, as a judge, I've always respected the Parliament and the elected representatives. They have been victims for the past 77 years. But my experience is that those, as a judge, that those who are in the government, for them, the enforced disappearance issue, they don't want to be told that this is an issue. And they also want to pretend that this is not an issue. It is an issue. Women from Balochistan should not be marching on the streets. As a judge, my head certainly hangs in shame. It is for the Parliament. It is for the political leaderships. When they are in opposition, they are absolutely different. I think the other things, I should leave it, the details, to my memoirs. But truth must be spoken, as Amna Janjua has said. She said in this documentary that she has not gained anything. With great respect, she's wrong. She has given hope to hundreds and thousands of those victims who should have been looked after, protected by the state. It is the responsibility of every citizen. If there is no rule of law, if there is no independence of judiciary, if there is no constitution, and if there is no democracy, if the people's will is suppressed, I'm afraid our destiny will not be fair to our coming generations. We owe it to them. We owe it to her. And we owe it to the youth. Everyone has to wake up. They can't just pretend this pretense has damaged this society. Truth has to be spoken. It has to be spoken when things happen. I'm sorry, Matiullah, you just made me emotional, so I wasn't emotional, but by saying, you see, you made me guilty. Yes, you are right. Those holding exalted offices, I'm afraid they haven't spoken truth in the last 77 years. The day they start speaking the truth, things will change. We have here some sitting ministers, some former ministers. I wish one day they will also speak the truth, because we all know the truth. Everyone knows the truth, but we pretend that we do not know the truth. So sorry, I never intended to speak, but I just, because I had to come with the kind of your struggle and the hope that you hold out for others. It's out of respect that we are here. Thank you.
Really, really great. Thank you so much, sir, for those. We have snacks, but before that, if anybody wants to share anything, please raise your hand if you want to have any comments.